welcome to the second episode of 8 Under the Sun. My name is Sebastian. Here's Florian, Francisco. Behind the camera, we have Elise.
Hi, everyone.
So thanks so much to everyone who answered the poll. We asked what topics you wanted us to speak about, and the number one topic was practicing methods. So that will be our first topic today.
And in fact, don't hesitate to participate and to ask during the live, during the podcast, all time. Yeah.
Yes.
So there is a lot of stuff to talk about in methods, actually.
Yes.
What should we begin with? Maybe the way we practice.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a bit specific. Maybe we don't have the ideal and the most common way to practice.
Well, maybe actually, because the way of practicing. For instance, you guys do different projects as well, such as me. Like you prepare sometimes solo concerts, like chamber music concerts, maybe a competition or something.
Not now.
Not now.
No.
Or maybe later.
Yeah.
But maybe there is a different way of approaching when it comes to practicing through these things.
Yeah. I wonder what people would like to say first, but
Yeah.
I think, you're a good example for someone that does a lot of competitions. Actually, you did a lot. How do you prepare for them compared to when you don't have? Maybe you don't have so much time when you prepare for no competition.
Actually, yeah, I don't know. I feel that when it comes to practicing, some people, especially in the guitar community, I don't know about other instruments, I cannot say much, but I'm talking more about guitar. And I feel that some people in guitar, they are very focused really about the mechanical part when it comes to actually playing clean, no noises, all dirtiness. And I wonder to myself if they actually think about practicing the musical effect that they're trying to create, you know. I feel that goes a bit to the second plan.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to go through this annoying stage of let's see, positioning, preparation, blah, 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 everything that Lucas speaks about. But you also have to go with the musical part, which in the end, that's why you practice technique, right?
Exactly.
So you have the tools to make exactly the musical effect that you want.
And maybe we have the feeling that in competitions, the mistakes we can do, they are just everyone can hear them.
Yes.
And the musical part is a bit subjective. So maybe it's why we want to be clean, and maybe competitions tend to they make us practicing this way, because sometimes you can see that people can win competition because they didn't do mistakes, but you don't really like the way they play.
Yes, exactly. Well, from the tendency I've seen lately, for instance, also last year that I did all these competitions, I feel that people are not so much looking for that, for the playing clean, you know, and playing some without mistakes, in my opinion.
But because maybe the one you won, because you won quite a few, and so maybe it's a reason why, because you were very focused on the musical part.
I feel so. I feel so because, for instance, me myself personally, I don't consider myself a very clean player, you know. I make mistakes all the time, and or dirty notes or whatever. But the point is, I feel that what they actually want to hear is a different musical experience, you know. And I feel that part can be practiced as well, you know. So instead of practicing actual speed, the preparation of fingers and everything in order to get the notes right, maybe what we should focus is, for instance, climax and most impressive or most impactful moments. Not impressive in the sense of like fast or anything, actually just impressive in the musical effect that they create or the impact that they have to the audience. Maybe we can focus a bit more on these passages and really focus on the gestures, either with our hands, even body language. We should focus a bit on making those the most impactful possible
for the public,
because that's what I think the jury will remember after listening to 60 competitors, different of them, where like 20 or 30 are absolutely clean.
and the prices, there are concerts mostly. There are some concerts to win, so they want to find a way to interest public.
Yes, and
So,
for
yeah.
sure, yeah. I feel that maybe this could be like when we speak about practicing methods. Maybe this is something that could be more approached.
So
yeah.
you will spend a bit less time. You will advise people that wants to do competitions to spend a bit less time to be clean, to try to be clean and not forget the musicality. But for example, you how much? Yeah, you wanted to say.
Well, I wanted to add that I think one of the big reasons why we focus more on the mechanical aspects, it could be because we're looking to impress the jury with cleanness. But I think one of the big reasons is actually because a lot of us need to develop the technical aspect before we can even understand what we're playing musically. And so we have to kind of build up the muscle memory, be able to play the piece. And then once we can physically do the mechanical gestures on the guitar, then we hear the music and we can kind of develop an interpretation based on what we hear. And so I think this is caused partly by the difficult nature of the technique on guitar. But for the vast majority of guitarists, the technique always comes first. We have to develop it, especially because our ears are underdeveloped and we have it's true, we have difficulty hearing the music before we can actually play it and we hear the sounds coming out of the guitar.
Yeah. So you think we should try to first think about the musicality, but how? Like for example, if you say most of guitarists, they need to play it for a long time, then they start to understand the piece that they are playing. But is there some ways that you would advise to do to have a different results and to integrate the musicality earlier in the method, in the practice?
I think it's probably just a matter of ease of sight reading, and then it depends on what kind of repertoire you're playing as well. Like a Baroque piece will be much easier to interpret than a contemporary piece that you don't understand the language of.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I feel that yes. So this part that you're saying about we first have to read everything, know all the notes. Of course, this comes always.
This is the first
but
stage.
This is what I mean. I feel this is like a bit of a guitaristic or a bit of a guitar community approach, in the sense that if we think about let's say Tchaikovsky violin competition or piano competitions as well, Chopin or something. I think the finalists, for instance, you pick up like 4 or 5, even the semi-finalists, I think. But these people, you don't even talk about mistakes or errors. I've never seen among them, and I've hanged out with a lot of pianists, and know a couple of them personally, but I've never seen among them discussing, yeah, but here in this bar he made it a bit dirty.
Isn't it because they just play so perfectly at the level of
so
play?
That's the point. Why do they play so perfectly? Why does it sound so perfect?
Because it's easier.
Maybe
for sure. When it comes to to noises and everything, it's way cleaner. But I also think that there's already a standard of quality that already supports that pianists that get to this level, they are going to play without mistakes. And if they do make a mistake, there are many other factors that come in priority according to these.
And the mistake is a bit more difficult to hear sometimes because they just hit the notes, maybe the wrong one. They have a lot.
They have a lot of them.
So it's not sometimes it's not easy to listen to everything, and when we miss something, sometimes there is just no sound.
Yes.
No sound, or just a very bad sound.
Yes, but I feel that maybe even if they play like 1 or 2 bars fully like wrong notes or mistakes, I feel that pianists will be thinking about things such as, clarity of articulation on the theme, for instance. Legato on this passage, use of pedal, is it too much or too less? These are all aspects that don't come so much with. It's not so much about the actual physical aspect or so much about the ability, but it's more about the way you present the music and you present your musical personality.
But maybe it has to do with the fact that there are so many. The tradition of a guitar, is a bit
still recent.
It's newer.
Recent.
Yeah.
It's becoming bigger and bigger. There are a lot of very good guitarists.
Yes.
maybe compared to before. There are many.
But that's more.
And maybe so there is a small percentage of pianists that doesn't do mistakes, but there are so many, so we have the feeling that
Yes.
they don't do mistakes.
But this is more or less what I want to say. So at this point, as you said, the guitar level is developing each day. And I think nowadays already when we speak about competitions like Koblenz or GFA or whatever, we already find at least a group of 10, 15 guitarists there that are technically you really don't have anything to say, right? So everything sounds clean, it sounds safe, it sounds
But
forte.
would you say that
And
they play
it's-
always clean? I wouldn't say this. For 15 people in semi-final, for example, you will hear a lot of mistakes.
Then again, I feel that maybe what is considered to be a lot of mistakes could vary from person to person.
Mhm.
But what I do feel is that from those 10 big guitarists, what is actually going to make the difference is probably a stronger musical personality in the sense that he can really showcase musical abilities which are not so easy to do on guitar.
And
For instance, a guitarist that plays super legato is very impressive. It doesn't matter if it's
Yeah, it's
easy or
true.
anything. But this is something that, for instance, even if the jury themselves, they don't think it like that, they don't really realize it, they will listen to it and they will feel like, this sounds very good, or this sounds like a piano, this sounds really interesting, you know? And I feel that was my point. So at the end of the day, what people are going to count with is, I think, a bit more this musical detail and refinement that distinguishes people that are just very good technically
Mhm.
with people who are actually incredible artists as well and have much to say. You know, tell me.
So if I completely agree. I think it's true. It has to be true because we're looking for music and not just perfect mechanical interpretation. But how does this apply to our practice, the way that we practice, is the question.
For me, it's that. So I feel obviously there has to be a technical basis and learning the notes. What are the most convenient positions? Sure, all of that. But I feel that you can always do that. There's many methods already written about this. You can have many teachers that can help you. I feel that maybe some of that 90% that maybe a lot of people spend on getting the motor skill refined, they could spend maybe those 20 to 30%, at least that, on just focusing on this musical passage, because this, for instance, is the climax of the music. So I need to really make an impact. Let me think how much rubato I'm going to play here. How much do I play this legato, or do I play with this articulation, you know? These are kind of details that everything together, it really makes a huge difference.
You try to find the critical parts that are, you think are the most important, and to focus and to spend more time into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you don't work so much. It's something that you work also in your head, but it's also, you can also showcase those things with body movement, you know, body language. And I feel maybe that it should be something to be considered in practicing methods.
I think this would probably aid with removing the stress of trying to be perfect as well,
Yeah, sure.
because you're less focused. I mean, as soon as you start focusing on the music more than the technique, you worry less.
Yes.
And this is a huge source of anxiety. Performance anxiety is worrying about the technique above all else.
And so it has to do with trying to find more emotions while you're practicing, trying to be connected to the music, and less being like mechanical and playing all the time the same passage until it's
I feel so.
yeah, it ends up. But maybe we could talk first. One of the first stages, as you said, is the sight reading, and there is a lot of guitarists that have a lot of problems
Yeah.
with sight reading.
Yeah.
So, for example, how do you do? How long does it take for you to sight read? Is it something long? Would you describe? I know for you that it takes a real not so long for you. It's quite fast because you practiced it for a long time. Is it?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't feel good sight reading. I don't feel confident or fast sight reading at all. But I do learn pieces very quickly.
Okay, so there is a little distinction between
There,
the two.
and I think there is actually, I think they're two different things.
Yeah.
I think
Speaking about different things, yeah.
sight reading and learning pieces
and memorization, yeah.
are different things. I know of other guitarists in the class here here in Geneva that are excellent. Like they learn pieces incredibly quickly, but that doesn't mean that their sight reading is as good as some of the others.
That is more memorization thing, and that can be another issue. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So if we start
Yeah.
with the sight reading,
Yes.
how could we improve on this? How do you think? Do you have ideas?
Mm.
Do you like
Yeah.
to sight read?
I like to sight read. Generally.
I love to sight read, but I don't.
I love to-
I don't have time now.
Yeah.
But
Well, if we speak about sight reading, to practice it as a guitarist can be a bit difficult, in my opinion, in the sense that...
good point.
Okay, I don't know what you think, but we have like... maybe I'm mistaken, but it's like 75% of our repertoire is D major, A major, and maybe A minor, you know? And it's like these tonalities, which don't even have more than two sharps or something.
So
or
it
three sharps
shouldn't
or
be that
something. It's like-
difficult, actually.
it shouldn't be difficult for
No.
guitarists, but
Well,
if
we
you're
get
asking-
good at those keys.
Yeah.
We get good at those keys.
I don't know. I think for me, one of the biggest problem
Yeah.
is that we come from a tradition of tablature.
Yes.
Yeah, tablature.
Tablature.
Yeah.
And so it's our history, and then we focus more on the fingerings, and since the beginning, so we teach.
That's an
I-
incredible point, actually.
They
Yes.
see. I try to avoid this with my students, for example.
Yeah,
they
no.
don't see any fingering until the age of 18. No, I'm kidding.
Until they're
But,
professionals.
yeah. But no, I mean, most of the time they don't need. They
Yeah.
don't need to because sometimes there is the right hand, the left hand, the position,
Mhm.
and it's a lot. And the string,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they
I
see-
know.
they
It's too much
focus
to
on
think about.
this.
Yes.
and they are used to. And when you just there is no information like this,
Yeah.
they get lost.
Which is, yeah, this aspect you bring is like, I think that's actually one of the main problems in guitar is like, in sight reading in guitar is that, for instance, if you think of a pianist, he has a score, and for instance, if you just put one melody, he sees, and then maybe even if it's a student, a very young one, he will
There's
just
just one
look
position.
at it and he will play it with
Mhm.
one hand, just that, and the notes are there, you know, and there's nothing like dirty or having to press. With guitarists, for instance, we have a C sharp, we have to read it, we have to put left hand, and then we have to look at right hand, and we have to play the right string, and then it has to be well pressed. So all of
But
this,
you could see, you
even
could
in
say
a higher
for
level-
pianists that you have this. It's difficult to have a good sound too. I mean,
sure,
it's
sure.
not that
But,
bad when when we miss. It
But-
doesn't sound like us, but still they have some.
yeah, sure, but either way, they just have to do one hand, play it, and
Yeah,
we
it's
have to
pretty
really think
easy.
about two hands, and all of that. It's very easy to play piano,
Yeah.
actually. That's the conclusion. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what we're doing. But anyway, so yeah, I think the fact that there is this two hands thing is actually what creates a bit of a barrier sometimes, and a bit of problem with reading. You know.
Mhm.
Because like I don't know about you, but I read and I'm like, okay, F sharp minor. I can see that the note is F sharp minor, so I feel that if it maybe it was a pianist, not being a pianist, I'm getting edgy here, but I feel if it was a pianist, F sharp minor he plays, you know.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like maybe if we are in another position and we need to do F sharp minor in the last string, like this position, you know.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can show actually. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Left F sharp, last string, second position.
Yeah.
We actually maybe have to do a jump, you know, or we
Yeah.
have to. And this is, I think, presents a bit of a barrier, you know.
Yeah, it is. You have a
So-
lot of different options too, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can do it in a few different positions, and sometimes you have just one that works.
Yes.
And so,
Welcome to Antonio Jose.
yeah, for example,
Yeah,
so you have to quickly decide what you have to do. So you have to have strong habits. But for me, it could be even for a very good guitarist
Mhm.
that struggle to do sight read. They could, for example, train sight reading without scores. Actually, like it starts with the knowledge of good knowledge of the fretboard. Actually,
yes.
so for example, with my students that are mostly young, they play. I ask them to play melodies that they know, and to play in different positions, but with the notes, not rating a score.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good way to know you just don't need the score to play on your guitar. And there are not so many guitarists that can do classical guitarists. I mean,
Mhm.
they always need a score, and when they don't have and they don't know a piece by heart, then they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Even when you say play A minor, they don't know. So for me, it's the first thing that people, even very good guitarists, could do, is to play, I don't know, opera melodies.
For sure. So actually, what you're saying is that they do some ear training, like
Ear training, yeah, and develop the knowledge of the fretboard. Actually,
yes,
can you
Yes.
give me the guitar?
yes.
Thanks. Because maybe there are few non-guitarists there, but it's maybe better if we sometimes, even for the things that we find very basic. For example, so it's not the best position, but if I play, I can do this there.
Yes, yes.
And then you do the same
do
thing
another
all
song,
over
yeah.
the fretboard. So when you show this to people, they don't know. They are lost.
Yes, yes.
They don't understand.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, for me, if we just talk a little bit about the knowledge of the fretboard, they could play easy melodies on one string, for example, just to see the intervals between the notes. For example, one tone or semitone. And then try to do simple melodies there, and then they will understand how it works on one string, because it's so difficult to understand that you have to go from when do you have to jump from a string to another.
Yes, yes, yes.
So you have this, then you have to move. It's not like the piano, which is, as we said, so easy to play.
Yeah.
From
It's
left,
visually easy.
it's
That's
visually
kind of-
easy, and you have just one place to play one note.
Yes,
And
yes.
as I showed, you can play a lot of different.
And different,
way. So-
pitches, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to start with it, and then trying by ear because with the sight reading, it has something to do with the ear, I think, with the comprehension of the harmony, the melody. Most of the time when you play pieces, you know the piece that you're going to play. So if you know where it goes, then most of the work is done, actually.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you know this melody will sound like this, you know what to expect, and it's not like you are discovering the piece from scratch, actually.
It's also very interesting to compare either implementing, listening to the piece as you're learning it, versus not listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
When we listen to the piece as we're learning it, it kind of jump starts the hearing process.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about it, but I wonder if this also, in a sense, impairs us from hearing when we're trying to learn pieces and we don't have the audio to accompany our work.
Yeah, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it's for some contemporary music sometimes that you don't have nothing to listen to.
That's
Maybe.
true.
Now
That's
it's
true.
pretty easy to find something, but
I came with another idea, but I want to let you finish.
yeah, it's not maybe. I mean, when you want to practice a piece, you have to know it. It's a bit strange if you want to play something. I mean, work on something and you didn't find it interesting before. You know the piece, and then I want to play it, or just for fun you want to sight read. Okay, it's another thing. But
Yeah.
most of the time when you want to do to play to have a recital program, then you have to think, okay, I like this music, I like this. You don't discover from scratch, almost never.
Almost never.
Oh,
A lot of pieces that I learned though, I choose after having listened to them like once, and then I don't listen to them again.
Because you don't want to be influenced
Yeah.
by this one version of it.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the fact of respecting the
score.
the score, what the composer wanted.
And also trying to search for something
New.
and genuine.
Yeah. But there is a lot of ways so for sight reading, to go back to this, to practice it, this stuff of finding melodies by ear, then you can read actually easy melodies without multiple voices. And if you want to go a bit further, stronger level, it's good because you have the the ability to understand what is happening. So when it's, for example, D major, or it's a classical style, you will know maybe most of the time what chords can come after when you are reading something. If you learned how to compose like this, for example, how do you call it in English? For French, it's écriture. It's composing in the style of some period.
I don't know if there's an accurate translation,
but
we can call it composing in the style.
Yeah, composing in the style. Yeah. If people struggle to sight read, I would strongly advise to start with this, but because then they will understand better what is happening. They will, when you see, for example, A on the bass, La, and then you have C sharp, Do dièse, and you can reconstruct the chord. You don't need to read everything like La, Mi, La, Do dièse, Mi. I don't know, and you can just see the bass, the melody, the high note, and then you will just guess.
And when you suggest to compose in the style, do you mean to write it down or to improvise, or?
It could be both, but first to write, because you have some rules that are easier to understand probably when you write.
Yeah.
But for me, for example, my teacher he was very interesting, very in Nantes. He was Franck Lagarde. Very nice, very funny, always a pleasure to learn, and very easy to understand what he said. So he advised us, because it's you have this tradition of not playing what you do. You have to understand from just writing. So for example, the fifth, parallel fifth, you have to see it and know that you should avoid this in the classical style. For example, it sounds not classical. It sounds very medieval or modal music and many stuff. But so I didn't follow this advice from him. I tried always to play on the piano, for example, and I'm sure it helped me to be better in sight reading, because I could make a link of the rules that I had to learn and how it sounds. Because before hearing it just in your head, you have to hear the sound for real, and they expect you to hear just by reading a score. But if you didn't make the link between the sounds that are written and the sounds that you will make from them, it's so hard. You have to start with something.
Yeah.
And the people like Mozart, he's very known for being able to just listening to one piece and then he could write a score. He used to improvise. He used to compose since the beginning of his life.
Yeah.
It was the same with Bach, and it has something to do with what we'll talk after, but we can talk about this maybe later. But they made the link between the score and what they had to do. And we had at this time tradition of it. Now we lost it, and we try to make some very good technical musicians, and then their compression of the score and the style
comes to a second plan.
Yeah, and they start to be very good. Even for piano, I've maybe not the best of the best, but there are some pianists that this is so rich, the repertoire of it.
Yeah.
There is so, I mean, Prokofiev, we don't have something like this, for example. It's complex, and you have to learn all those different styles. We don't have that many on the guitar. So it's some they just know how to read, but they don't understand what's happening. Yeah.
What you're describing, I'm sure it would make a difference for a lot of players, but it's kind of in opposition to the direction that the guitar repertoire is going right now. We're moving towards more and more abstract, complex arrangements that would be impossible to improvise. Arrangements that are distilled down from complex piano scores and that have such complex voice leading, and it's like there's so much information underneath what we're playing that it would be impossible to improvise it on the guitar. And and we're moving more and more towards these idealistic pieces
Mm-hmm.
that require greater and greater technical ability, and which are less and less linked with this kind of natural improvisational way of learning music.
But I think if you can compare to something that you understand, it's easier to understand something else. I don't know if it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a reference, it's what is different from it. For example, if you know if it's in classical style, you have some order of playing chords in the music. When you play some chord, then you have few options, and there are some options that doesn't exist. You have few options every time.
Yeah.
And so you're more ready to have surprises, because you prepare to something, and then when it's something different, I feel that you can be more you more
It makes-
prepared
Mm.
for the surprise, because you just don't discover everything from scratch every time. So you have a reference. So I understand what you mean, and even for the most advanced guitarists actually, that they try to play pieces that are more and more difficult, that they have to optimize everything,
Yeah.
even the fingering, so you can't improvise it.
This is a very important part that we have to talk about too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, having the same fingerings, for example, some you can have parts when you don't have the same fingerings every time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because it's so easy to play.
Yeah.
So it would be a very, for me, it's a loss of time.
Agreed. Yes, but now the competition repertoire is difficult enough to require. I mean, so here's a really interesting question. Do we write in the fingerings as we're sight reading the piece, or is that like a later process?
What do you do,
I
for example?
feel it's the later process, in my opinion.
Okay.
So in the sense that you read and maybe you create fingerings which replicate the notes that the composer writes, but then again you go to this more of this musical or context dimension of the piece, and according to your idea, which is here I want legato, for instance, here I want to play staccato, then you choose your fingering. For instance, articulation. For me, like the quality of articulation depends almost 70-80% of the fingering that you do, and I think that's should be the intent that you create fingerings, right? Is serving the music actually.
And
I know
Hmm.
how
it's not something that most of the guitarists do, I think, but
I think a lot
that's
of
how it should be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I've been in the habit of always writing in the fingerings as the first step. Actually, when I was learning your piece just recently, it was the first time in a really long time that I didn't write the fingerings in until later, and I didn't even write in all my fingerings. I just wrote in the very difficult parts.
how long did it take for you?
To learn the piece, or to
To just discover all the piece and to know how to kind of play all the piece. And when did you decide to write some?
It was
Because you
it
go
was a couple
fast.
days.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
you didn't-
because you are very, very fast.
You didn't,
Very
you,
quick.
you didn't write fingerings. That was so mean. That piece.
Sorry.
It was so mean that you didn't write fingerings. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't.
Sorry.
I don't write, for example, for myself that much. I try to force myself to do, but my teacher used to ask me to do, but I didn't like. It's not. But
And
I mean,
know teachers.
I know, I know that's. I could have been better for. It could have been better for me sometimes, but
Yeah.
maybe I don't find some interest.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
So it's all about this. I must, and now I just don't write
Uh-huh.
almost anything. Most the few moments that is very difficult, and I try to remember more the notes and less the fingerings. But sometimes I do mistakes because of it. I know, but
Yeah, sure.
we have to
Makes
accept it. For example, how many fingerings do you write? What percentage of the piece do you
Do I
think?
write fingerings?
Yeah,
I don't.
you don't at all.
At
No,
all.
even of the.
So, like,
Oh,
okay,
really?
I mean, okay. There's some places where it's like it's very counterintuitive,
Mhm.
maybe to what the conventional guitar technique would go for. So maybe I put the fingerings on that passages, but it's very rare. Usually because at least for me, memorization of the piece is kind of easy. You know, also muscular memorization is kind of easy. So I don't really have a need to write it. You know.
Guys, this brings me to a question that someone did on Instagram. That since you mentioned memorization, do you have any tips for it? I know you guys are all you have easy time memorizing pieces, but could you think of any tips to our listeners?
It's related to, I think, what we said in a way, because it's funny because Eric from the class, Eric Mayer, did work on it. He did, how do you say mémoire?
Research on it.
Dissertation?
Research.
Or?
Yeah. And he tried to ask people how they manage to learn a piece. And there are many different ways, different type of memories, like we talked about, the muscular, it's kinesthetic. Sorry,
Kinesthesia, but I don't know exactly what it means.
Yeah, it's. I think it's. I don't want. Muscular. It's okay. Yeah, by just sight, memorizing, seeing the score in your visual, and
identical maybe.
Yeah. And
I feel that you should correct us every time we say something. No.
Visual.
And the ear actually, and maybe the comprehension. We could add this. If you understand,
definitely
you can create. Sometimes, for example, for some Baroque music, for example, or classical. When I forget something, because I have memory faults. I don't forget the melody or the bass.
Yes.
And sometimes you can.
This because, for instance, you played Giuliani pieces, maybe in chamber music or something. You know, there's sometimes full pages of 151 harmony. So it's like, so at some point I'm like, okay, I don't know which note I'm playing, but I know this is root position. I know this is first inversion. I'm just gonna play the bass, which is the most important because maybe the flute or the violin is playing the melody.
Yeah.
And then I just improve. I just put the harmony, you know.
And then you feel less pressure.
Not exact notes. Just maybe sometimes I change the order of the tones, but the bass is there, the harmony is there. Okay. And I think this, for instance, is a memory that is related to the, for instance, harmonic function, which for me really makes it easier to remember pieces, you know, because I know that, okay, I don't know the notes here, but this is the harmony. So sometimes even if I'm on stage, it's like, okay, what is the note? I'm going to play the harmony.
Especially for chamber music. It's different from solo for memorization because you depend on someone else.
Yes.
So if there is sometimes the other has a problem, a memory fault, so you can just know where he is or she, and react if you understand what is happening.
Yes.
And then you leave better the memory flows. It's not that critical.
It doesn't become a huge problem. You know?
Yeah, you can go through it. It's okay. It's human. There are a lot of great pianists and musicians. We talk about piano. Guitarists too. I don't know why I said pianist because we talked about a lot of pianists. I was thinking about Richter, Sviatoslav Richter.
He has memory flaws?
In the end of his life, he used to read the scores. So you just had him on the stage,
yes,
with lights on the score, and it was almost everything in dark, and he was reading this. But he had perfect pitch, for example. I'm sure he was able. I don't know. I would be very interested to know. Maybe I knew, but I don't remember why he has this, because he lost, I think, his perfect pitch. He had problems. It's a nightmare to know this, but he had, I think, I don't want to say something wrong, but a little, I go on. Something different from the 2 years. He could hear a bit different. It sounds a bit out of tune, I think.
So yeah, maybe one thing that we could really think, what I was going to get at is that maybe it would be good for people if they do have these memory problems, you know, either chamber music or solo, maybe make an analysis of the piece, you know, melodic and also structural and harmonic, And I think all of this becomes way clearer in the head as a whole structure of a whole piece. And I think it will be way harder for you to actually have a big flaw in terms of a.
Exactly, and people won't notice actually if you
And
can
even if you
recreate
play
it.
different notes, people will not notice.
If
yeah.
their harmony is kind of the same, it's
Yes.
not. It's okay, and in fact, I'm sure composers used to do it
Yes.
when
for
they
sure.
play their own music,
Yes.
and probably they change it a lot. And
Most of the times.
Yeah.
There's a recording of Rachmaninoff playing. I mean, quick thing, but musical moment
okay,
with the score. He's not playing what's on the score. There's a full page where he doesn't play what's in the score.
okay,
I
this
was
is interesting.
But that's
Yeah, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
What is it's
It's.
do you know if it's on YouTube?
It's
for
on
example?
YouTube. It's a musical moment, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah. A friend of mine sent it. Jam Ergo. Thanks, man. And yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we can find it, it could be
Yeah.
interesting to know.
I can try to find it. I just it's.
You need time.
need
But
some time.
I think it would take a bit of time.
We have a lot.
Okay.
We have a huge team behind that will search for.
Yes.
Thanks to the team.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So you will advise to for me analysis. It was always boring, very boring. I don't know why.
To call something boring.
Yeah, boring. I didn't. I remember when I was young in France. We had a lot of lessons about some analysis and a lot of different things. And I remember that I didn't understand why we would do this. Sometimes it's like in the school, in normal school, you learn something without having the time to ask yourself questions why you are learning this. And sometimes if you just, for me, it's the best I would advise is not to go to analysis lessons. It would go to go in composing in style. It starts with classical, baroque, and then in romantic music, and after you go somewhere else. But I would strongly advise this because for me, at least for me, it was a huge improvement of my knowledge. It was the best way for me to improve on so many things that are related to playing music. And I think it's the best way to find something interesting. But now, after this, you start off demystify. Can you say demystify?
Yes.
Composers and seeing how great they are in the same time.
Yeah.
To really understand how great they are.
But what you're speaking of brings us to a point which I kind of think it's kind of interesting, which is like the
Kind of.
improvisation. It's kind of interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about the improvisation within our music education curriculum. Or in this case, because analysis is very related to it anyway. Or composing, as you said. And
It has to be the case.
Yes, it has to be
Hundreds of years before.
It has to be the case. And I don't know. I feel that a lot of times, some of these lessons, I mean, I know it's probably logistically, or I know realistically speaking, it's kind of complex. But I feel a lot of these composing and improvising lectures that we have, or formation that we have during school, could also be in a way adapted to the instrument of the person,
Yeah.
Because what I feel is, and I don't know about you, but a lot of our colleagues, I think a lot of times they do know the theory behind what we do, even if we improvise for them, they know the theory about it. They know this is a first degree, this is a fourth with inversion, blah, blah, okay. But the problem is to actually apply it physically to our instrument, And this happens with other instruments as well, of course, even with violin or cello or anything. But sometimes I feel there's a lack in our curriculum of acknowledged importance of having a teacher that is specified in actually playing, that knows how to play our instrument and is specified on that area. I feel it would be an interesting thing to include in the curriculum.
Exactly.
Although it's very hard.
It
I
completely
imagine it's
doesn't
very hard.
exist, yeah.
But it should be cool.
well,
But, I mean,
I wanted to say one more thing about memory before we moved on,
yeah.
but it's linked to this.
All right.
I think it's important to keep in mind that for a lot of guitarists, the memorization process is very unconscious. It's difficult for us to describe exactly how we memorize the piece. It's just like when I was in high school and I was taking a drama class, a theater class. There was the teacher provided us a very specific way of memorizing the texts, the script, and it was basically you would say one sentence out loud and then say it out loud without reading, and then say the two sentences with reading, and then say the two sentences again without reading, and then you keep going like this over and over again until you make a mistake, and then you restart from the very beginning. And so my point in bringing this up is that there was such a strict method for that was given us for memorizing scripts that we don't have at all in music.
You can do the same actually.
You can do the exact
Phrase by phrase, and
you can, but nobody does this. I don't know of anyone who does it.
Okay.
But
I hope my students do, because it's the easiest way for them to
do you do this?
I don't do this, but it's
too easy
for me. For me, it's the most basic way to learn something. It's when you do the first poems that you have to memorize when you are a kid. It's the first step of memorizing. You read one sentence, one verse.
Yeah.
Yes. Then the other, and then you do groups of them, and it's pretty an easy way to improve. I mean, it's easy to understand.
It requires a little bit more initial effort than just reading through the piece over and over again until it enters into your muscle memory, which is what I do actually. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, but the way that I memorize is that I play the piece over and over again, usually with the metronome, and I build up the speed, and it just enters into my muscle memory.
But do you spend a lot of time to... I mean, for example, when I sight read something, I do it maybe once, and then right after you have to practice on the most difficult moments of it, most of the time. So when you work with a method like this and try to find the phrases when it starts and when it ends, and then you try to so you can practice with a little musicality in it, and then it becomes clearer. If you just do from the beginning to the end or over and over, when you have a memory slip, you don't know how to start from.
Yes, agreed.
And when you know that if you miss one note, or if you have just one moment, you're not really focused, because it has to do memory slip. It has to do with the being able to stay focused for a long time. For me, it's maybe my most difficult thing. And then, I would say that you have to work in a good way. So probably to practice the most difficult moments, and to do the phrase by phrase with the end. And then you will have a lot of different boxes of memory. And if you miss something, you can start not from the beginning, as a lot of students, very beginners used to do. They start from...
Even advanced students do.
Yeah, probably advanced students. So maybe it has to do with the method when you practice.
Not so much focused on the muscular part, but also on the actual structural part of the music. It's quite important. Yes, I think to note.
Yeah, I think that the one thing though is that because it's so unconscious for most guitarists, and yet many guitarists seem to have problems with memory. I think
there's a good share of them.
Oh yeah, there are, but some of them not.
Some of them not. Yes. And I feel the ones that don't have a tendency to also understand the music of what they're playing.
Agreed. And so the point I think that we should make is that we have to strive to understand the music better, which is what you were saying.
Yes.
But it's like it remains an unconscious process. I think we have to seek to understand in the most profound way possible, and we achieve this through improvisation, composition, and analysis and ear training, and all of these different aspects of our musical competence.
Yes.
It's all around what we expect. Like it's not directly related to classical guitar.
Yes.
We are saying just basically that we should try to compose different things than playing pieces, actually.
And this
is interesting.
Yeah, and these are essential. We have to develop more fully, and yet the memorization process can remain unconscious in a certain sense, but it's fed by all these different processes.
For you, it's unconscious, but if you have to think about it like you do now, you know what why you memorize easily.
Bravo. So all these things are important, which comes to my point.
Yes.
It's even more important to include this composing
Agreed.
and improvising
Yes.
part in the curriculum. And preferably, yes, someone that actually knows how to play our instrument and can relate the theoretical knowledge with applied performance.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel this is something that lacks.
Completely.
I understand there was a historical development that created that went towards a bigger respect to what's in the score. But nevertheless, even the people from that period, they knew how to improvise.
Yeah.
Because they were composing, you know? And that's how they brought new music to the world. And I feel it's a shame. It's quite not understandable for me that people don't do it anymore, you know? Like, because, okay, we speak about the tonal music now. The contemporary music as we see experimental, you know? And we find a lot of that on guitar. For me, the thing is, like, I still feel that even if you want to go to different fields, you know, like tonal and all this freakish music, you can also, you still should study and come a bit from the basis, you know. So understand harmony, applied harmony in Baroque period, even in classical one. So then you can make an actual organized development to make sense also in a modern and contemporary aspect, you know.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yes.
So, I don't know. It baffles me that this is not thought of.
Yeah, me
And
too.
it baffles me that I live in a community of guitarists and no one asks me about this. For me, it's very weird. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I feel that 200 years or 300 years ago, it would be obvious that you have to.
I remember,
improvise.
yeah, it was.
It was very difficult.
Yeah, no, but I think because I'm very interested in jazz and improvising for a long time,
Mhm.
and so I'm often with people that can improvise, and when we are doing a party, for example, we play music, basically.
What?
Yeah, this is very weird.
With jam.
Yeah,
Jam,
the
man.
jamming, and it's so nice. It's so fun to do, and it's maybe the best way to live your passion about music. For me,
Mhm.
it's one of the best because then it's directly integrated into your life, and the fact of meeting people to exchange some
In a bit
ideas.
of a more elitist environment, that also happens. In classical world, if we speak about 300 years ago,
Yeah, but-
they would meet at bars, you know,
Yeah,
and they would also play, like, they would improvise, maybe a bit more
I think we are going.
the environment, but
Yeah.
the essence of the thing is the same, in my opinion.
It's
Just
the
hanging out
same.
with friends and sharing that.
It just changed
Yeah.
for the classical music. I mean, classical. It's not classical anymore, but it's because they wanted to make very good technician about music to play in orchestra.
Technically proficient.
Technically, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
technician. You
Technician.
can say, but technically proficient. Yes.
Mm.
musical technicians that can play in.
Can
Not
take
to-
your pipes and
And I don't want to
Yeah.
say that it's not. I mean, I don't want
it's
to.
important.
It's important.
But-
And I think there are a lot of people that like to be experts of the technical part, and it's very interesting too. And to play in the orchestras and to serve the vision of one man. It's the composer actually, and they didn't need to know everything about the composition because the composers did for them,
Yeah.
and then they just had to play one part of it, and then everything is created from the orchestra.
And it resulted in some incredible music.
Exactly, and it's because of the way writing music. It's the result of the fact of we are able to write music, and the
Yes.
notation were more and more developed. At the beginning, there were not notations. Then it was very basic, just
Mhm.
the melody. Then you started to at the time of, for example, Monteverdi, he didn't specify the instruments that had to play some parts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think in Orfeo, there is it was maybe the first time actually that they mentioned the instrument that should play.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think it's this. If I remember well, it's been a while ago that I learned this, and it means something very. And we hadn't so many dynamics on Bach music, you don't have a lot of dynamics. Sometimes you have piano forte, and that's all.
That's
Yeah.
it,
And then after you had more and more indications by the composers, and it means something about focusing on one people. And the romanticism, for example, it's all about this. It's all about
Yes.
one man that has emotions, dark
then-
stuff,
and-
happiness, a lot of. Before it wasn't about this. It was about God most of the time. Bar music was this, not having. No. And then you after it was more focused on one guy. It's the essence of the romanticism. So. And it went further and further, and the language started to be more and more.
Brought it to a whole other level with articulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it started to be the music itself came from the score. The fugue, for example, it's one of the best examples of it. It maybe I would say it exists because we can write.
It followed
Because
the,
you can go back and
the development
see.
of the score.
Yeah, you. It's like improvising. You don't control the time. It's and then when you're composing, you can go back. You can focus. You can micro and microvision of it.
Zoom in. Or,
Zoom in, zoom
yeah.
out, and like Dusan Bogdanovich used to say, it's frozen in time. So
Yeah.
you can do what you want when you are a composer, and then it ends up playing in fugue. It's maybe one of the most advanced way of composing, and more complex. It's very difficult to improvise a fugue. Some guys they do, but they are geniuses. For example, this organist, Esquèche, Thierry Esquèche, he can do it. I mean, Bach used to probably do it.
That, yeah.
Maybe not the same way when you compose, but yeah, it's
He could do it. Yeah, he could do this. It was years of study of counterpoint and voice.
and a
techniques,
genius.
yes.
No, one of the best
And,
ever.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, Thierry Esquèche, for example, I've listened to him 2 years ago, maybe.
So
Improvising, it was just crazy. He could do whatever he wants. He has a mind that I can't comprehend. I can't imagine.
So yeah, I mean, you also, I feel that probably you have the same opinion as me, but we should, in our school curriculum, actually make improvisation one of the primary subject, because it always comes a bit in the second plan. It almost comes as
Maybe more than
course.
second.
yeah,
Last.
it comes like a course you can choose, or if you have to do it, you don't have to do much.
It's late. It's always.
Yeah.
It's often too late.
Yes.
If you don't have, for example, jazz that is very focused on improvisation, then most of people, for example, in HEM, Haute École de Musique de Genève, they have some lessons they can have, but they didn't
Have before.
improvise maybe ever,
Okay.
and they want to try, and they have so a huge difference between what they can play as musicians with the scores and what they can do on the instrument.
Yes, and this is because I believe because as the schools have, they input these priorities, of course, which is first your performance exam, and your technical proficiency in your instrument or whatever.
Optimizing the way you develop the technique.
Then music theory, then history, and all these exams, and also I feel also what the work market kind of demands from the guitar community, for instance, such as
Is there a market?
competitions, if there is a market. Yeah, but in this
I
small
didn't know.
market, if we can call it, like, they demand what usually people have to do is maybe play competitions, maybe do concerts, and maybe make videos, of written pieces, and all of that comes in the primary plan. But I believe, in my opinion, in schools should really insist on this more.
But
And
then
they should
we
also insist on having a teacher that is good in improvisation and also able to input that improvisation into the instrument that you are studying. I feel this is essential for musical education.
It has to be essential, but it has to start earlier than
It has to start
post-secondary.
It's from
It
the
has-
beginning.
It has to start from the very beginning.
Yeah, but so, guys, we have to become directors of conservatory and try to change. But otherwise,
It should be.
I mean, it's starting to change in a lot of conservatories. They ask you to be able to do it as a teacher a lot. It's like a trend. It's a good trend for me, but sometimes it's done not. It's not. They take often. They ask this and then they take people that don't know because there are not so many that can do it. It's perfectly understandable. Yeah, for example, in guitar.
Yeah.
Even for the haute école, they wanted someone that could improvise. For the teacher of haute école.
They wanted a
Uh,
composer.
They
a
wanted a
guitarist composer.
and
Yes.
improviser a bit, no? Isn't it?
I don't remember.
Well, if you compose,
think-
usually
Probably.
can improvise. Usually a bit.
Maybe not all the time. I mean, for example, Seb, you know how to improvise, I would say, but you wouldn't describe as an improviser.
Correct.
Yeah. So
But you can improvise a bit, I feel.
I feel I have seen him, so I know he can improvise
That's what I
a
mean.
bit.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
So, but
Then
there is but then I think we should change from the beginning, and it's starting to change. But I would say we have to change everything.
Because if people start being introduced to improvisation since a young age, improvisation is the first step to composition.
Mhm.
It's while you improvise that you come
Yes.
up with themes or the ideas that you actually think maybe this could be a theme for a long structure sonata. This could be a theme and variations, right? So the improvisation is going to lead to composition, and finally with the composition we will finally start having actually new repertoire for guitar. And in mass, like
And
maybe the
The quote I said about Dusan Bogdanovich, I think I didn't tell the right one. I think he said it's improvisation. Composition is improvisation frozen in time. So
okay,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's also one of his books, I think.
yes, XO, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I have it.
And yeah, this is very interesting. For me, it's how it works, and I think maybe for you, would you say this? You improvise, then you note. You have the guitar actually, if you create for guitar.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's not improvisation. You have to keep going, and it's what is difficult because you can't
Yes.
stop. You have to go. You have to.
You
And
need
for
to think
the
so
pulsation, for
fast.
example, the rhythm, it's a good way because the rhythm and the pulse is in the center of it most of the time. Or if you do some free without tempo, it's something else. But it's one of the results of guitarists that don't do improvisation for me. It's that they struggle to keep time.
Pulsation.
Pulsation, yes.
Yeah.
And they tend to they want always to, if it's even a groovy piece, then they are always slow down or do some of the battle. So, and if you ask some other musicians that plays I don't know, traditional music, or they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Like pop music, for example, you can play with the beats in your ear.
Yeah.
they do it.
Yeah, sure.
They're like tick tick tick, and they play, and they have to keep it. And most of the time it's the drummer that has it, and then you play. It's very different from the way we play. It's
Tell me, so because now you're saying about this, most of the guitars have this tendency. Do you have, for instance, ways that because it's already been established, I think, that in schools they don't care about teaching us improvisation, unfortunately. So, but I mean, at least in a serious way. But do you have any advice about how, for instance, someone could actually start?
For example, people
starting improvisation,
that play quite well at
people who already
advanced-
It has to start there, I think. I mean, because we need to be able to teach. If we can't do it ourselves, then we can't teach it. And if we can't teach it, then no one will ever learn it.
Yes, but he knows how to do it. I've seen it, and
but he's one of the few.
Sure, but
So go on.
It can come from because my teacher didn't used to my first teacher to improvise. I developed it because of the jazz, because I started jazz early, and we played not all the time jazz. Sometimes we played free improvisation. It was maybe the first step actually. So if you can't do it, then the conservatory could have some lessons with someone that could help you to develop it. Because it's now a bit difficult if you are very advanced to spend a lot of time to try to improvise. But I think it can go quick if you want to, for example, to teach it to your students, beginners, even up to the end of the conservatory, but the normal one, not the university. You have to play modal music, for example. So the first step for me,
Modal music.
yeah, I would say to play, for example, a pentatonic scale. It's one of the first step. And for example, for my students, they don't see a score, as I said, the first steps. They learn the notes, and then I try to make them improvise and to keep a pulsation and with few notes. For example, you can play, well, it depends.
Put it more in the mic.
Yeah, sorry. For example, mi from mi, for example, mi sol la si re mi. It's a bit out of tune, but
Even the students said not total.
yeah, not all the time, but they have to learn the scale and then they try to improvise with it, and then you can accompany them. And if you don't know how to accompany, you can do very basic stuff, just keeping the pulsation with them. For example, an arpeggio that gives them a lot of space, and you can ask them to have very strict rules, but it's already a lot of freedom. You can ask them to play long notes, like so they have time.
Can they understand the degrees of within the scale?
No. I wouldn't ask them to do this. I would just say, you know, it ends. It starts and it ends with the E, for example. If we are in E, so if they want to start, they can start from the E, mi, and they can end and decide to make the improvisation end with it. And I explained them that if they want me to stop with them, they have to show me. So they have to do some ritenuto and rallentando, decrescendo, and then end with the mi, for example. And it has some conclusion to it. And then you can... So you start with very easy rhythms. Then you can ask them to play ostinato, rhythmic ostinato. For example, like this one. And they have to keep it. So la si re si la. For example, you can adjust what is very convenient with this is you can adjust everything for every student. If they struggle to play just one note, you can just ask them to play open strings in rhythm. And then this first lesson you can have music. I really hate now having the score in the first lessons, even the first month. I find it very stupid. I would say we have to roast, so I try to say what no filter. So I think it's stupid because when they are 7, 8, 9,
they can barely read.
Can barely read even their name.
Yeah.
And then they have to read something, and while having this huge thing, and try to find a way to play with the two hands that does something very different. It's so difficult. And so I started with the scores, but with time I started to hide them, and but
it was like. They brought the scores. It was like no scores.
No scores.
Usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Where are your scores? You know,
No.
like,
Yeah.
no scores.
No scores. What are you doing?
Yes.
No, but and it's even better to learn how to read. Actually, I find it very the best way to.
Well, it's like trying to teach a baby who can't speak a language yet to read a book. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. Okay, nice. Okay, whatever. And then you can develop a lot of stuff from it. You can enjoy as a teacher to do this because you can always change. you can have some stuff and add some wood into the fire. If you see that it needs something, you can react. It's very fun to do.
Yeah, I feel it could be like that as well. Yeah, we were speaking more of the context also of young.
Yeah, but you can do it with advanced
older
people,
as well.
but it will just go a bit
Faster.
I hope faster.
Yeah.
So you can ask to you can try to play in a few positions to decide to be there.
So scales. You're talking about patterns, actually.
You can,
It's a very jazzistic way
but
of approaching it.
yeah, you have to know what notes you are playing. Mi, sol, la, si, re, mi.
Yeah, because it's also easy to fall into the trap of learning the
The
scale
positions,
shape.
and you don't know what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yes, no, but it's still right. But it's still like a lot in patterns. I feel it's still in the patterns. The saying the notes already comes closer to, of course, in the musical understanding of it. But for instance, when I speak, okay, but I don't do this type of improvising the way you do with your students, teaching them. But if I would be speaking about older guitarists or people who already asked me about it, for instance, I feel it's very good to sometimes what you can, more than the patterns itself, of playing scales and everything, is maybe doing analysis of pieces that have recurrent use of some of positions that are very normal on guitar,
Mhm.
play some very conventional harmonies, and play with the inversions, right? And this is something that you see a lot in Mauro Giuliani, in my opinion. So when we think about famous pieces,
Yeah, it's a bit too much.
too much.
Maybe like this.
Yeah.
Because we want to hear you too.
Yeah. So if you think about the Rossignano number 1, where he starts with E minor, right, and then 4th degree with the 7th, right? Then we have 5, and then we have 5 again. Actually diminished chord, the
Mhm.
7th. But essentially what we have is a movement of the bass that comes within sometimes with inversions, right? In this case it was always root position, but here we had a inversion that
Mhm.
follows like this. By learning inversions, in my opinion, by playing with very conventional progressions, and this one I like particularly, the 1-4-5-1.
Yeah.
But by doing this, you can actually make huge. You can already make huge introductions,
Yeah.
and this happens with Aguado and everything. So
Mhm.
these type of exercises, it comes more. Of course, in the end, you do have to know how to play, put it physically on the guitar.
Yeah.
But you've already played it in many pieces.
Yeah.
You just didn't realize it. So if you actually do a thorough analysis of the piece that you're playing, you will remember that, for instance, this chord. Okay, this is in the harmony of exactly
Yeah.
in the harmony of A minor. This is a dominant 7th in the first inversion that you showed.
Mhm.
And then you can do this walking bass, right?
Yeah.
And then I use like 3 harmonies, like here, like 5, 1, 5 still 1.
Mhm.
Then I did 4. This is 1 as well on the second inversion, just with the E on the bass. But you can obviously, this is just the harmonic functions that you have, but you can obviously make a very nice introduction of this, right?
Mhm.
This is a very effective mode in my opinion, because you find this on the, let's say, professional level pieces that you already are.
Exactly. Yeah. It
and,
works with the Folia, for example, too.
sorry?
Folias, the very easy
Folias is,
theme. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The same, yes.
And you can do it in many different keys, and it's a good way to start. I agree.
Yes.
And then it's a good way then to implement into your playing in
Yes.
concerts even,
And it becomes so.
because sometimes, I mean, there were this tradition of do the cadenza. It's the cadenza, and before, until maybe the end of the 19th century,
Mhm.
probably, they used to improvise.
Yeah. Completely.
All the time.
Cadences were not written.
I've-
Yeah.
I think about someone that does it, or yeah. I think of someone, this pianist, Turkish pianist. I don't know what is his name? Sorry, I just don't remember now. Obviously, he used to play to improvise. For me, it wasn't that good. He played concerto by Mozart. I don't remember which one. It was too different from Mozart, but maybe because we are very used to hear the same cadence all over. But it was very like he wanted to put himself out of style a bit.
Okay.
So it's difficult to not to be out of style. Recently, I tried to play in a Baroque style, for example. It's even more complex than doing on classical. For me, I find it. You have more options, and yeah. So sometimes it's difficult to respect the style. But first, we can just try and be happy to do it and to try. And yeah, the way you did, then you can try to find a few positions. So sorry. For example, you have to work on the positions for the each chord, for example.
Yeah, so the different inversions or the different you have to work on.
Exactly.
These are things that I mean, of course, because you're speaking about the child level,
Yeah.
Child.
This is
students.
already more advanced.
But we're speaking more advanced. But the more advanced students, they already play that in their pieces.
Yeah, so it's not
they-
that complex to.
It's about they
to understand.
realizing it and just playing it a couple of times that they're able to do it.
But it's good to make them. I would say it's good to try to think what is happening in the chord, what note is and
Yes,
where.
exactly.
If you want to play, for example, this and you don't know, it's just you remember this position. I think you should try to think do mi la, and then every time, everywhere on the fretboard, and you can, and even for the sight reading, it's better because you can find where to look at
Yes.
different ways of playing the same things, and then you can you have to practice this. It's a bit mechanical way, physical.
There is a
Yeah,
physical element to it,
yeah, but you have to always make the link between the notes and the positions,
For sure.
and
But this
and
is-
try to think la mi la do.
but, this is what I was
La la do
trying
mi.
to. This is what I was trying to explain with the inversions thing, because you have these, when I was talking about this walking bass, these inversions was a way of making a melodical line that actually was like. And then if you just add chords.
And there is the règle de l'octave in French, the rules of the octave.
Francisco, just one thing. You can do all this. Can you play Freebird? It's Michael Ibsen.
Play what?
Freebird. Can you play Freebird?
No.
What is Freebird?
What is that, Michael?
I don't know. I assume that
He has
you
to
knew
explain
it.
himself.
Michael, you should explain yourself.
Yeah.
We'll wait for your answer.
Am I saying it right? Michael Ibsen. Ibsen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I know Blackbird.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks to ask. Yeah, I mean, you can have a melody then and react with the
And you also spoke of the ostinato voices. It's very interesting because it's the same. So you use a one ostinato and you can still shuffle between first, fourth degree harmonies, and it's also five. Let me see. But for instance, thank you. For instance, if I'm playing, we're still in A minor, but it's a simple tonality to start with, but you're playing. You kind of have D minor, but it's a bit of a second inverted, and then five with sevenths, and then preparing this kind of a modulation, and then you go back.
And you
Then I
just
was
do
using
1
the-
5 1
Yeah,
5. Yeah.
exactly. But this is still the same.
Yeah.
But it sounds very
Different.
dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's the thing, and this is something that Tregondi does it a lot, for instance,
Yeah.
as well. He just uses one bass, also on the.
exactly.
It's the same with the.
You
bass,
don't know,
yeah.
you know.
And then he changes to I or to me, I don't know, but I think it was to A. But
Yeah.
it's about the ostinato and how you can shuffle melodies in the upper voices,
And
I feel
you
this
can,
is-
for example, with ostinato, you can take inspiration from pieces that you know. For example, sorry, I'm struggling to get in tune. And you can take this and then go. If you like this piece, it's a good way to start and harmonize it and do other stuff.
Also,
with
nice exercise. I don't know if you ever done it yourself, but is actually pick up in very famous pieces and change from minor to major. Major to
Mhm.
no. If you play the diamond, then you want to practice a bit. And then this is a good way. This seems like a joke, but this is a good way to get in contact with different key signatures, and to actually know as well to understand, have a better understanding of the frets and of the harmonic structure of the piece. You know?
And it's fun.
And it's kind of fun, you know.
It's real fun.
No, you can do this with anyone. But it's an exercise that I recommend for people who want to start improvising. You know, this thing of changing the harmony from major to minor, minor to major.
Exactly.
It can be like quite helpful actually and fun. Yeah, you like
It's all about it has to do with practicing methods that we can use.
Mhm.
We didn't talk about being happy by practicing.
Because you're not.
Most of the time I wasn't practicing in the more conventional way. So that's what I'm interested in different things now. I understand myself better. But in lots of time now, I get bored by just practicing, repeating the same stuff. Maybe not being particularly gifted technically, and so you just focus on all the mistakes you do, all the things that you could do better, and then you just playing stuff that are very difficult to play, and you're not very happy.
Yeah.
For example, there was some time I was not that amused or happy to do it, and this is a good way to be creative, and still you can practice technique, you can practice the knowledge of the guitar and the ear and so many things, and it's like a game.
Mhm.
It has to do with the game, and then you understand better what you are doing when you play pieces, and so you can sight read better, so you have more pleasure to do. It's
Again, if in your education you had a subject that had a significant importance on improvisation, and there was someone, had a guitarist giving you this subject, these things would show up naturally on your practice. But
Exactly.
you don't have it, and it's a huge gap. Yeah.
And another exercise you could do for advanced player would be to make an analysis of a piece. For example, I did it recently for bar music, and you. For example,
It's like a partimento.
so
Harmonical deconstruction of the music.
exactly,
Yes.
and then you can try to improvise.
Maintaining the same harmony.
For example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you have and then you have
Yeah, of course. Kind of arpeggiate the melodies, the harmonies.
and it's most of the time in a lot of music by bar it does it like this, and it's the best way to start because it's very difficult to do polyphony really like in the same time in harmonic and for example and then you have it's not clearly a melody and not an accompaniment.
Yeah, of course.
It's both. at the same time.
It's both at the same time.
For example, this partitur for flute.
Yeah.
It's they don't. I mean, they don't. They can't. They can't accompany themselves. Poor guys. Boring. And so the bar it's the best way to have harmonies in it, and so it's a easier step to begin with because you can not think of too many things in the same time. It's already not that easy to do, but then it's a bit more easier than doing.
Yes, and let it be said, this is a great way. I feel this is a great way to introduce also to composing as well.
Mhm.
When we do these kind of harmonical deconstructions, this exercise that you was doing with, picking harmonies and arpeggiates and adapting it to our instruments, that's where a lot of good ideas come from.
Sometimes you accident too.
A lot of times
And then you
find
find
it accident. It
yeah.
was like, well, I'm just bullshitting around and
Oh, wow. And then you keep
Yes.
digging, and there is something that comes from it.
Yes, exactly. And I think for the people who also want to maybe have something to do with composing, they can also start going a bit. They can use these things as a tool.
Yeah.
You as
Exactly.
a composer probably also feel maybe the same. I don't know.
Yeah. The only exercise that I've done in improvisation or in ear training, but I think it was fundamental for the beginning of my compositions, was to transcribe
As well.
And actually, when I was in high school, I transcribed a song by Joe Pass, which is very. It's like the
Can you give it to me, the score?
yes, actually.
Alright.
But it's I mean, Joe Pass is like one of the greatest guitar improvisers of all time, and he
Yes.
everything that he writes that he wrote was complex enough to be extremely interesting,
Mhm.
but still it was improvised. So it's idiomatic. You have the chord positions. You have the chord
There is
shapes.
a lot of patterns.
Yes.
They don't have to think from scratch about everything. If you think it is, then it's very intimidating to try to do the same.
Yes, right.
But they have some kind of way to play.
I feel that sometimes they have a structural idea of what they want to do. They're playing and they think like, okay, maybe now I want to make it fourth degree, And
Yeah.
then they just the bridge is just a pattern that they already practiced 50 times at home.
It's all about
Just like that.
having some time to think about different things at the same time. If you have a lot of automatics things, like you know how to play chords without spending too much time to try to understand, like, wait, I want to play F major, for example, and I have to think for a long time. Fa, la, do, and then it's too late. But
You missed it.
yeah, you missed it.
These things that you're talking about, I think they're extremely necessary, but I think there's also a different kind of work that can be done. I think I need to begin doing this kind of work, but I think one other strategy to begin composing is for guitarists to make it one transcription of one piece, one entire piece, and in doing so, I think we can link the ear to the fingers, and this is the I don't know if it's the only way to compose, but it's to have some sort of ability to find what you're hearing.
It's like, you know, when some people do like mechanic for the cars, for example. There is, it's a bit for me the same way. You have something that you want to deconstruct,
Yeah.
Yes.
and then you understand with small steps what piece is
you see the
the
small pieces, so you
Yeah.
see the function of each.
and then you start to understand what piece works for what and
Yes.
stuff. It's like
Yes.
almost
It's
this. You
fun.
deconstruct something, and if you do transcription, then you know a piece so well that you hear everything.
Which note makes this
Even if you hear the
chord
original version, you learn to know what is the bass, what is the accompaniment, what are the notes that are the most important, and you develop your ear. And when you hear the piece with if it's for orchestra or piano, you start to hear more than before.
Yeah.
Before you have I think an impression of something, and after you can start to detect some very specific parts from it. Oh, I heard this. I never paid attention to this. Now I heard it. And the students all the time they play, and sometimes they start at one point they start to say, oh, this sound like this. They discover it's like they always played it, but they didn't notice.
Yes.
So it's a good way to improve, and I agree that then you do a transcription of Debussy, for example, and then you understand a little bit the machine.
Yeah.
And
but it unlocks our ability to kind of, I mean, when we're transcribing, we're doing the same thing as composing, which is we're hearing something and then we're writing it down or we're playing it. The only difference between transcription and composing is that the transcription is literally something that you're hearing, and then the composition is something that you imagine. And you can only imagine a combination or some sort of agglomerate of everything that you've ever heard before. And as guitarists, we've heard a lot because we've played a lot as advanced guitarists. And we also, I mean, a lot of us have incredible technical abilities. And so as soon as you can start like making the link, unlocking the ability to hear and then to play it on the instrument, even if it's extremely slowly, which is my case, we are immediately able to compose. Like, and then the other thing that you were just talking about recently was that if you kind of fiddle around on the guitar, if you're improvising a little bit, we will come across incredible sounds that are so interesting because of the nature of the tuning, actually. Like, open strings create super nice colors that are immediately inspiring. And like, I mean, sometimes my friends will be playing like just completely random notes, and then like they stop and it's like, oh, that's cool. The only step further to composing is to like be able to think, anticipate, and then know how to put something after
create,
it.
Exactly, and to create something after it.
And it can be an like, so as I say, for those who are not experienced in improvising, who don't have the speed necessary to improvise, I really think that every advanced guitarist has the ability to compose, as long as they just start making the link between what they hear and what they can play. And it can be a very slow link. It doesn't have to be fast because we're composing. And you can find such incredible colors, and then you just put them together, and then it becomes the task of learning to organize these and put them into structure.
And I would say something, I think it's very important, that's unlocked something for me. For example, I've started to compose very young, easy pieces, obviously, and I was playing it and writing it, and my teacher used to be interested in it. And after, for a long time, I stopped. I compose for jazz, but it's a different way of composing. You have to find a melody, you have to find chords, bass, but you don't write everything. And it took a long time for me to go back and to try to compose again. It's because of the consciousness.
Yes.
If you wait too much from you, it can be
you expect
censorship. Is it this word? You can censor.
You can censor yourself.
Yeah. And you don't have to compose the first time you're trying something very beautiful and a great chef-d'œuvre. You don't have to do this. And we are playing chef-d'œuvre. People exactly. That used to play it, and so when we compose, sometimes we want to try to do something that we like as much as the greatest of the greatest. And it's very difficult if you compare too much. You have to accept that the first compositions that you do, they won't be perfect, they won't be the best. If you have fun, it's cool, but sometimes it's not fun to compose, it's a nightmare. But yes. For me, it takes so long sometimes to become crazy. You just have to, maybe because I have too much expectation for myself.
No, you're not alone.
Or
I don't think.
I don't know if I have too much expectation, or if I'm finding that I'm not good enough, and
self-doubt or
yeah, something in between. Sometimes it's another one, and sometimes it's another.
yes.
And so we have to find a way to accept. And for people who wants to try to do something. I don't know what you want, but you can start with something easy. You can even do something for your students, a melody, very simple, a ballad, and then you will see, and then you will start to have the taste for it and to develop some abilities to do it. And it's sorry, we have to finish, but what's unlike this. I talked to Philippe Leroux, who is a contemporary composer. I had to play a piece by him, not written for me. It was, but with a duo. And then I met him a lot after. It was homage à Ivan Vishnegradsky, so it's very difficult to say. But when I met him, obviously I forgot, and he forgot too. So it was okay. But now I don't forget this name. But it's too late. But anyway, we were talking. It was very nice, very intimidating. But we talked about this piece, and he said, "Yeah, I remember it was my first piece. In fact, it was the first piece of my catalog." And in a way, it unlocked something for me, because it meant that he had composed childhood composition. I don't know. He decided not to keep and not to show to people.
Yes.
But finishing these compositions, it's very important, because you go through the whole process. You have something finished. And you need to finish things, even if they're not perfect. If you don't want to keep it, to play it,
you need
and
to try, kind of fail, and then continue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Guys, you're ignoring all of my signs. I have to interrupt here. And we had 2 games, and we will keep them for next episode, actually. And we will close it with this question from Michael, actually. He asks... on the point of harmonic accompaniment helping improvisation, do you guys think that it's also a reason that improvisation and composition seems so much more relevant among electric guitarists, since they don't have to think about all the notes and about the harmonic part?
I'm not sure to understand.
Do you think it's more common between electric guitarists to compose and to improvise, because they don't have really to think about the harmonic part most of the time? And
it depends. I mean, it depends if we talk about pop music or jazz or other stuff. For example, there is Johan Smith, who plays middle music. I don't know the right name of it, but his band is Stortregn. It's not easy to say. Mm-hmm. And they are doing a lot of concerts and composed for this. And so he plays on the electrical guitar, and he said it was very close to the classical composition, except that he had to play for a small orchestra, a small band. So you don't have to play everything on the guitar. You have to play melodies and accompaniment. But if it's for pop music, that I'm roasting now. They said that they want us to roast, but it's easier because they always play the same chords in pop music. And I remember a time I had this recording session in a kitchen studio in Geneva with a very competent sound engineer, and he was very used to record some pop music, or it's maybe there are many things that he does, one time we talked about Imagine Dragons. Is that the name of the band? I sound like an old guy, and it's pretty obvious they do always the same song, always. I have to play for my students. I think it's one of them. Sorry.
Yeah. I can confirm. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I need to.
and they do always the same chords, so they don't have to think too much about this. I said something about this because he talked about how it's Rick Rubin, who is a music producer who.
I think it's called Enemy. No.
Yeah, probably. I just always forget the names of the songs and the bands
I know.
and the lyrics and everything, except for the notes. And then they stuck in my head. But yeah, so whatever. Rick Rubin is a very famous music producer, and he was very important. I will make it short. And he started to work with Imagine Dragons, and the sound engineer he said Yvan Bing, he said, yeah, he changed everything in their sound. It's huge. They were starting to struggle to find some new ideas, and so he was talking about this. Then he showed me the last album, the last song they did. It was the same. It was the same chords, but
Yes.
because as classical musicians, we're not waiting for the same things.
Yes.
He was talking more about the sound design almost. It maybe has more to do with the sound design, the texts, the lyrics, and so in a way, it's to answer to the question. It's easier for a classical for electrical guitarist or pop guitarist, even for acoustic. They don't have to think too much because it's not what is the most interesting. I have to imagine in pop music. That's why I'm not that much interested into it, because I like harmonies. So maybe it's easier, and they have very well prepared pattern that they can use.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
think that's it. We will unfortunately have to finish.
Wow.
This was so long. We had a lot of stuff to say, but I think it was super interesting. So
Are there other questions, or they're
No,
done?
Francesco is here, and he likes
Hi, Francesco.
your decoration, and that's it.
That's nice. We had a very nice cover. I want to show you. You will
Yeah.
be stunned. You will be amazed.
It's very good.
It's very good. It's a very famous classical singer. I think we can.
Yeah, careful with the light.
Yeah, I have to find.
It's a fine
This-
spot.
That's good.
This is the most beautiful cover I ever seen. It's Johnny Hallyday, rest in peace, and it's the best. I mean, the best of the best of the best. See, you can imagine it has been done by some AI. Actually, they ask, "Can you put the face of Johnny Hallyday with an eagle with Dali style of
Francesco
guitar?"
says that's quite something.
That's this quite. I've bought it. No, I don't buy it. I had it for free because they wanted to get rid of it.
Let's say bye to everyone, and
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the questions
Thank
here.
thank you
and
everyone,
yeah,
guys.
we'll see you next episode.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.